So in this hand, this is the second to last hand of the evening of the live stream. Aqib opens it up under the gun and he makes it $40 to go with the 3 deuce of hearts. Burke is next to act and he finds the 7 deuce, and as previously mentioned, the 7 deuce game is on. It's been on for the pretty much the entire evening. So Burke finds 7 deuce and he puts in a 3-bet there. He makes it $130 to go. DJ is right behind him with the ace king. He finds himself with the premium hand. He just decides to flat call with the ace king suited. It's over to me and I looked down at 8-7 hearts, and I actually looked at my hand before Dan made his decision. I was really hoping he would flat there because it would give me extra excuse to cold call the $130 3-bet as well. So that's what I do. The second to last hand of the evening, I'm looking to get in there with the 8-7 hearts for sure. So I make the call. Mike cold calls in the big blind with the 6-4 suited, and Aqib's not going anywhere with the 3 deuce suited. So we're going 5 ways to a flop here in a 3-bet pot. Flop comes favorable for us. Flop comes Jack 8-7 with 2 clubs. Somewhat favorable, I should say. It's a little bit dicey of a situation having bottom 2 pair on a very wet board in a very multi-way flop. So action checks over to Burke with his 7 deuce. He flops bottom pair here. He's in a tough spot because there's an overlay for him. If he happens to win with the 7 deuce, he gets $50 from every player. But this board is very connected and could very easily have nailed 1 or 2 players here. As illustrated, I'm in there with the bottom 2 pair. Everyone else misses. It's going to come down to Burke and I should he continue here in this spot. And he does continue in this spot. He puts out a C bet, bets $400. 400 into 662. It's a pretty tough spot. I mean, there's certainly the value. There's the extra value in it for him taking down the hands with the 7 deuce, getting the bluff through. It's just a very tough board to get a bluff through in this spot. So I don't blame him for trying. Certainly, I don't blame him for trying. Just for the added bonus money, and doing it on line stream. That's always extra sweet. But it's going to be very tough for him to get it through on this board, having all these players, hoping all these players had missed. So after Burke bets $400 here on the flop, DJ gets out of the way. It's an interesting decision for me with bottom 2 pair. Folding out is obviously out of the question, so it's a matter of raising in this spot or just flatting. Having a couple players behind me, I decide on a flat call. I decide to see what happens behind me and see how heavy the action gets. If someone puts in a raise behind me after I flat call and then there's another raise behind them, if there's heavy action, it's tough for me to be in that good a shape with bottom 2 pair on this connected and wet of a board. The best case scenario is that someone is drawing and has a pretty good draw with a lot of equity. So that's going to be the best situation if there's a lot of action behind me. So I just decided to tread a little bit lightly. I just decided on a flat call, see what develops behind me. Everybody else ends up folding. So Burke and I are going to go heads up to a turn card here. Turn comes an offsuit 9. I don't think either of us are very happy with that card considering our exact holdings. I think it's an interesting spot for Burke, very interesting spot. It's tough for him to know which cards are good and which cards are bad for him. Some of these cards might be good for him continuing with his bluff here. This is certainly one of those cards that could fit the bill. Unfortunately, he has no idea which cards help me, which cards I'm drawing to, or whether I'm drawing at all. I could be looking for a club. I could be looking for a gut shot to go along with a pair plus straight draw. I could have a set, and he could be in a great spot to put in a bluff and get me off of whatever holding I have with the 7 deuce. But he decides on a check. I can't really blame him because it's just a guessing game for him. In my spot, I decide to check it back. There's certainly some hands that I beat, some overpairs that my hand is still ahead of, and I don't know if I need to turn my hand into a bluff here with a bet with 4 to a straight on board, so I just go ahead and check it back on the turn. River comes another jack, pairs the board. Burke decides to check it once again. Burke can beat some flush draws. He has some showdown value versus some flush draws versus ace queen of clubs type hand, king queen of clubs type hand. He has some showdown value with his 7 deuce. I am in a somewhat similar spot, but I actually think that it is a very close spot once again and very similar to the hand where I had 5-4 of hearts. After Burke checks it over to me, I'm in the tank and I'm debating jamming here. I'm debating just taking the pair of 8s to showdown. Once again, it's one of the worst hands that I can have in this spot. The only other worst hands that I could have is some sort of a club draw that whiffed. Aside from that, one of the worst hands that I can have. So I think there's a lot of value in jamming here and turning it into a bluff. I think it makes a lot of sense, because even if Burke happens to have an ace-jack type hand, he still has to worry about the straight. He has to worry about pocket 7s and pocket 8s, which we block. We block both of those hands. It's also unlikely that Burke has 7 deuce here, because we have a 7 and therefore block that hand as well. So it's unlikely that we have the best hand that often. So I think jamming on the river here makes a lot of sense. I decide once again to take the low variance route. I kind of like a jam here, and once again I think it's the spot that I can work on in my game. Could do some work on those kinds of spots, but I decided to check it back, and luckily Burke has one of the very few hands that I can beat with my pair of 8s, and we take it down. I think we get a little bit lucky there, checking it back in this spot and being able to show down the winner here. So we get lucky that Burke happens to have the 7 deuce. We win a nice pot here on the second to last hand to end up booking a decent sized win. We book about $900, a little over 900 in the session for my first live stream session.